I always believed I earned this, all of it. Every curve of this skyscraper, every name on the doors, every share traded on the market. I'm Robert, the carpenter's son from Wisconsin. I didn't just build a company, I'd build an empire. Our holding, Axiom Industrial, is about more than profit. It's thousands of jobs. It's families sending their kids to college.
I always told my children, when you build something from zero, you owe the world. That was my motto. My mentor, the man who taught me everything about business and production, was old George. He was my second father, my partner, and our first CEO. George and I built this company from a garage. We believed in one simple thing: honest work brings success.
George died 5 years ago, leaving me Axiom and a flawless reputation. I thought I knew every crack in our company's foundation. I thought I knew George. But last week, I found his old work laptop locked in the vault. I was just looking for old blueprints, but I stumbled upon a folder. The folder was labeled "The Cost of Zero." Inside was one file, encrypted with the simplest password I knew, George's wife's name. I opened it, and what I saw wasn't a blueprint. It was a ledger, a record made 25 years ago, the year Axiom was on the verge of collapse, the year we couldn't pay our suppliers, or, most terrifyingly, our staff. The file contained a detailed scheme of how George saved our company. He didn't find an investor. He didn't take an honest loan. He ran a scheme involving the pension funds of a small town in Ohio. He took $15 million meant for firefighters, teachers, and nurses' pensions. He didn't plan to steal it. He planned to return it in 6 months after securing a big contract. But he never did. $15 million that allowed Axiom to survive was literally the retirement savings of ordinary Americans. My mentor, my hero who taught me honor, saved my empire by destroying thousands of futures. Everything I built is founded on that lie. My empire is not my pride. It is a debt George failed to pay. And now, that debt falls to me. The first 48 hours after finding the Cost of Zero folder, I was in a state of pure, animalistic denial. I wanted to believe it was a simple mistake, that George, my mentor, just took a loan and maybe forgot to document it. But I'm a lawyer by training. I knew what I saw. Aggravated felony theft. Stealing pension funds. This was a crime against the most vulnerable.
My first thought wasn't about prison. It was about my son. My son who has run our sales department for 5 years. My daughter who just graduated from MIT and is waiting for me to name her head of R&D. They believed in Axiom. They believed in me. If the truth surfaces, they won't just lose their jobs, they'll lose their name. I hired a private investigator to check what happened to the $15 million. The report left no room for doubt. The money was never returned. The fund went bankrupt. Thousands of people lost their pensions. Firefighters who risked their lives. Teachers who dedicated 40 years to education. Because of the $15 million that saved my company, these people were forced back to work in their 70s or live on welfare. Their lives were ruined to save mine. I tried to find George to talk to him, even though he was dead. It was irrational, but I searched for his justification.
I tracked down his widow, Eleanor. She still lives modestly in the same small house. I asked her point blank, "Did George know what he did?" Her answer was simple. He knew it was hell, and he knew that without that hell, you wouldn't survive. He traded his soul to save your future.
She made it clear that George died carrying that burden, but never found the courage to tell me. He left the choice to me: silence or destruction. The situation quickly worsened. My old friend, a federal prosecutor, called. He couldn't say it directly, but he warned me about a high-profile financial crime case linked to Ohio funds.
He said, "Robert, be careful. People are looking for the root cause." I understood. Axiom was about to be investigated. Several Wall Street Journal reporters were already asking questions about our earliest years. George was dead, and I would be left to answer for 25 years of his lies. I gathered the board of directors. Without disclosing the true reason, I proposed burning the oldest archives, citing data storage optimization. The majority voted yes. I stood before the fire, ready to throw the past in, and realized I wasn't just destroying paper. I was destroying evidence of a felony, becoming a full accomplice.
I stopped the procedure. I couldn't do it. My motto, "Honest work brings success," rang in my head like a cruel joke. I knew I had to find another way. I had to deal with this debt, a debt that wasn't mine, but which had become my moral responsibility. $15 million that I now had to repay to save not just the company, but to save myself. The pressure became unbearable. The feds weren't just looking, they were digging. I received an official SEC request for all financial records spanning the last 30 years. They were closing in. I knew I had only weeks before they found the exact anomaly, the loan that never returned to the Ohio Pension Fund.
My only goal became finding $15 million and returning it, not for legal defense, but for moral redemption. I reviewed all of George's personal assets, his accounts, his policies, but George died nearly broke. He left me the company, but took away my ability to pay his debts.
I realized the only way to raise that sum in weeks was to sell a part of Axiom, to sell what I had built all my life. But who could I approach? If I brought in an external investor, they would conduct their own audit, and the cost of Zero's secret would be exposed.
I decided to turn to the only person I thought I could trust, my son, David. David, head of sales, smart but overly confident. I told him we urgently needed to raise a large $15 million reserve fund due to unforeseen legal risks related to early partners. I couldn't tell him about the pensions.
David's reaction stunned me. He didn't ask for details, he immediately started calculating what we could sell quickly. He suggested liquidating a small but successful Oregon subsidiary to use its assets. His readiness to sacrifice a part of the business to save the whole was terrifying.
He was willing to do anything to keep his position and lifestyle. For the first time, I didn't see my son. I saw a reflection of the young, unscrupulous Robert I was supposed to become 25 years ago. I stopped him. No subsidiaries. This must be done quietly, using personal assets.
I began frantically selling my shares, paintings, and yacht. But even that wasn't enough. Meanwhile, I found evidence that someone inside Axiom had started digging. Some old records were missing. I installed cameras in the archives and saw my CFO, Miles, looking at the very reports I tried to burn. Miles had worked with George from day one. He knew. Miles came to me. He wasn't blackmailing me. He looked at me with cold fury. "George saved us, Robert. He did it so we could have this day. If you speak up, you won't destroy George. You'll destroy all of us." "I won't let you do it. I already burned the reports you couldn't." At that moment, I realized a shadow council had formed within the company that believed in George's lie. They were ready to do anything to save the empire, even commit treason.
Miles knew I was looking for money to pay the debt, and he was ready to stop me. I no longer had control. My legacy was being protected by people who had become part of the crime themselves.
I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I felt like a captain knowingly steering his ship onto the reefs, knowing he could change course but no longer had the moral right. Miles and David, my son, had teamed up to protect the company from me. They blocked my personal transactions to stop me from raising the $15 million.
They were saving Axiom, but in doing so, they destroyed the remnants of my soul. The external blow came swiftly. I received an invitation for an informal lunch from Jack Corbett, the federal prosecutor. We met at an empty restaurant on the 70th floor, where we went celebrated our first major IPO.
Corbett was direct. He didn't smile. He placed a photo on the table, an old, run-down school in Ohio and 3 elderly people. Robert, these are the Smiths, the Campbells, and the Johnsons. They lost everything. We found the financial hole. We know Axiom is the root cause.
I tried to feign ignorance, Corbett sneered. George protected you until his death, Robert, but now he's gone. The scheme was genius, but it's not perfect. We have a witness, a junior accountant George forced to sign the documents.
Then Corbett delivered a low blow. We have reason to believe your son, David, was involved in the scheme. He was an intern then. You can save yourself. You can save David, but you have to turn in George and reveal the whole scheme.
You get immunity, and we get the company. Axiom will be dismantled, but David avoids prison. This was a satanic choice. Save my son by betraying my dead mentor and destroying the company, or protect George's reputation by exposing David to suspicion and risking the loss of the company anyway.
I returned home, devastated. I found my daughter working in my library. She asked me, "Dad, what happened? You've changed so much." I read your motto, honest work brings success. I want Axiom to be built on that, not a lie. Her faith in me was the final push.
I called Corbett and told him I was ready to talk. I couldn't betray George, but I couldn't expose my son either. I chose the most honest, yet most destructive path. The next morning, I called a press conference, not waiting for the feds.
As I stood before the cameras, I saw David and Miles in the front row. Their eyes held pure hatred. They knew what I was about to do. I started speaking. I confessed everything. That 25 years ago, George Mason saved Axiom by stealing $15 million from pension funds.
I revealed the full details of the scheme, without naming Miles and protecting David, who didn't know the specifics. My company, which I built, is founded on a crime, and I, Robert, take full responsibility. I didn't just destroy my legacy, I sacrificed it. The moment I spoke those words, the blinding light of the projectors hit me, and I felt the vast machinery of Axiom Industrial collapse, taking all my pride and dreams with it. My words led to an immediate and total disaster. Axiom Industrial stock collapsed, a federal investigation began, and I lost everything. I was arrested right at the press conference. On the first day in prison, I looked at the dirty walls and realized that for the first time in 25 years, I was sleeping peacefully. My pride was shattered, but I got my soul back. My wife, who had always stood by me, filed for divorce. She couldn't forgive George's lie, nor the fact that I let that lie define our lives. My son, David, disowned me. He believed I was a traitor who destroyed an empire to save himself. He still thinks I should have burned those archives with Miles. But my daughter, she stayed. She visited me, brought books, and talked about future plans. "Dad, you lost the company, but you restored honesty. That's the best legacy you could leave me," she said once. Her words were worth every billion I lost.
I served 3 years in prison. That was enough time to see the world George ruined. I received a letter from one of the elderly teachers in Ohio whose pension was stolen. He wasn't demanding money. He wrote, "Mr. Robert, you gave us our dignity back. We saw there are still people willing to pay the price for truth. Thank you."
I live modestly now. I consult, helping startups with their business plans. I guide them with one rule. If the foundation isn't honest, no building will stand. I lost everything, but I didn't lose my daughter.
And I didn't lose my name. I'm no longer Robert from Axiom. I'm just Robert.
The difficulty was that the lie wasn't mine, but the consequences were. I sacrificed billions, but I restored the honor my mentor left to rot in the archives. Knowing you lose everything, career, family, and freedom, but save thousands of strangers from destitution, would you have walked out to that press conference? Or would you have listened to your son and burned with the empire? Let me know your choice.
This story is about the high cost of being honest. If you value stories that make you think about the price of success and honor, please hit the like button on this video. Support our channel by subscribing so we can continue to share these difficult but truthful moral dilemmas.
Thank you for watching until the end.